Alright, so today we're getting started with our Northern Lights or Aurora Borealis landscapes that we're going to be making. So you're going to have a piece of kind of like tag board or thicker paper that we're going to be using, and then you'll also have a piece of black paper. And we're going to start out by adding a line across, not quite the middle of the paper, just a little bit lower, and that's going to represent where our snow is, and then the top part will be sky, and we'll be adding a reflection down here as well. So I'm going to be using a chalk pastel. The chalk pastels usually leave a little chalky residue on your finger, so that's kind of one way that you can tell them apart from an oil pastel. An oil pastel is going to be a little bit oilier, but we are going to be using the chalk pastels. And so I'm going to start out by drawing a line, pretty much straight line, all the way across my paper like this, and adding in maybe a second one about that far apart, about an inch apart, and we're going to fill that whole part in. That's going to be snow, because typically the northern lights are only seen up in the northern parts of the globe, so places like Alaska in the US, Norway you can see the northern lights from, but we're going to fill that in like so. And then the nice thing with our chalk pastel too is I can use my finger and I can kind of blend that in a little bit more. Okay, you're going to have a lot of extra chalk dust, so one smart thing to do instead of just blowing it and letting it get all over the place would be to take your paper and just tap it, and it's going to come down, and you can kind of scoot that off to the side and we can clean that up later. Okay, but that's our first step, is adding our snow. Now the next step, we're going to start adding our actual northern lights across here. So I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to tear it the long way, probably 3 or 4 times. And I want it to be kind of jagged. We just watched a video about the northern lights. We saw what they kind of look like. So we want this to look cool and kind of adequately or accurately represent those. So that looks kind of cool. And I'm going to tear this one more time. I would go no farther apart than that, but it doesn't have to be perfectly spread out. But we're going to go like this, and I'm going to slide this up and out of the way a little bit, and I'm just going to focus on this part. So I'm going to start with 2 colors, and it works best if you use 2 colors that come out of the same cup, which would be analogous. So I've got 1 cup with my cool chalk pastels, and 1 cup with warms. So I'm going to go ahead and start with some of my cool colors here, and I'm just going to add them along here. So I'm going to leave a space and fill it in every other. So there's that. Add some here. And add some along there. Now I don't want to rub that or blend that in because we're going to be using this on our black piece of paper. So I'm just kind of spreading that out there, making sure I don't bump it or rub it in too much. Okay, we're going to keep going all the way across. And then once you have that done, you're going to slide this back down and line it up. And I don't have to line it up straight across, but I could if I want to. But I'm going to go like this. And then with a clean finger, I'm just going to start sliding up like so. Okay. It might work to use 2 fingers, 1 for each color. And you might have to wash your hands multiple times during this project, or just keep switching fingers to find clean ones. But, oops, I'm just sliding it up, and if that happens, I can just line it back up really quickly. And then I'm going to keep going. And I'm alternating which finger that I'm using. Okay, and we're gonna do this 3 or 4 times actually, let's say. So now I've got that, and that really pops. It looks like it's glowing. Okay, then I'd choose my next piece, and I really don't want to use the flat edge because that's not very accurate or what it really looks like. And maybe this time I'm gonna use some of the warm colors. So maybe I'll do some orange across here. Okay. And maybe I'll go orange and red for this one. Okay, and again, orange and red are in the same cup. These are both warm colors. So they're going to look good next to each other. They're going to blend together well. If I put 2 colors that are in separate cups next to each other, there's a good chance I'm going to choose 2 colors that would make brown, and we don't want that to happen. So now this time I can overlap parts of it, okay, or I could slide it down so that they don't touch at all, but I'm going to overlap a little bit. I want to make sure I find some clean fingers for this. I might have to use my left hand instead, but I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go up. Okay, my fingers might get a little bit dirty if I am doing some overlapping. So again, don't be afraid to wash your hands each time you switch colors. Or the other thing that works really well is just have a damp paper towel next to you, and you can blot or wipe your fingers off on that paper towel then instead. But that looks pretty good, and I've got a little bit of an overlap there, maybe a little bit more overlap than I really want, so maybe next time I'm going to go down a little bit farther. But like I said, we're going to do this 3 or 4 times at least, and I want to try to fill in that whole sky, that whole length in between. And I really think that some of our cool colors do show up a little bit better, so I would recommend using more of the cool colors. Make sure your white piece of paper here is out of the way and not on top of your blue piece, because we don't want those colors to get down there. It's okay if a little chalk is there, but you're going to be making a reflective scene down there and adding some trees in the next video that I'll show you. But this time I think I'm going to move it down slightly farther so that it's not overlapping. And I'll find some clean-ish fingers and go all the way across again. Okay, and if you don't feel like it's bright enough or vivid enough, you could go back in, add some more chalk, and do it a second time. But I really like how this is turning out so far. Okay, this time I was bold and used the same finger the whole time. We're just rubbing all the way across, trying to get that chalk to go up. Alright, and I could just call it good there, or I do have one more side here that I could go across with too, but that's it.